This is Two Girls, One Ghost.
Two Girls, One Ghost. And we are your ghostesses. That is Corinne.
Hello.
And I am Sabrina. And I don't know. How's everyone doing?
We're good.
When does this episode come out?
I don't know. But I did screenshot something the other day that I saw online and I was like, I have to send this to you. And then I was like, wait, I'm actually just going to tell you on the podcast.
Oh, what is it?
It caught my attention because there was the tagline that said, Italian island overrun by goats is offering them free to anyone who can catch them. And then this is from cake.news on Instagram. This is what their caption was. But it says, this tiny remote Italian island of Alacuti is home to only around 100 residents and ideally about 100 wild goats. But this year, however, the ratio of humans to animals has become wildly unbalanced. The island has been overrun by 6 times its desired number of goat inhabitants and has more of the animals per capita than anywhere else that counts such things. And the mayor is calling on anyone who can come help and pitch in and solve the issue, aka catch some goats.
Well, there's 2 people right here. If they'll fly us out, we'll go catch some goats.
I feel like I'm now on goat news because I also saw another article that was saying that the town that they had constructed for the movie Big Fish, 20, 30 years ago, there's nobody that lives there, but it's kind of overrun by goats now as well.
I mean, that's a cute little town. If I were a goat, I'd be like, yeah, I want to live here. I also have been inundated with goat news because when we did
This is a goat podcast.
Yeah, because when we did our goat episode, I was looking at Reddit. And so now Reddit messages me goat stories.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
What did I get the other day? I sent it. It was like, I've received a new goat and I'm not sure what to name it. Please help.
Oh my God. Did you contribute? Did you pitch some names?
No.
Oh, shoot.
Next time it happens, I will absolutely do it.
Yeah. Well, I am curious about this goat catching situation in Italy because I know it's not going to happen for me, but I think there's a lot of other people who have been curious about moving to other countries. And I think there are some areas in Italy, correct me if I'm wrong if you know, Sabrina, but I'm pretty sure there are some towns and islands and spots in Italy that will almost like pay you to live there and help you find a residence. And so I'm curious if you can kind of combine all these things where it's like perhaps you get a visa to be able to live there. You're on some sort of property that you're fixing up, or they're like just trying to populate a town again with younger people.
Right.
Could you also go get some free goats from this island and then begin a goat farm? Is this like a $0 initiation fee into being a goat farmer?
Someone here needs to volunteer. It doesn't have to be one of us. It could be one of our listeners who wants to go catch some goats and let us know how it goes, how it goes.
It definitely won't be us. We're not in the position. If you had pitched this to me like 2 years ago, I might have done it.
No, you wouldn't have.
No, I wouldn't have, and then I would have regretted it.
Right.
I would have regretted that I didn't do it.
And you would have seriously considered it and been like, this would be feasible.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't, I don't think you would have gone through with it.
No, I would have needed this actually to come to me when I was having my quarter life crisis before I applied to grad school. I think once I applied to grad school, I was like, that's it for me. I'm just going to become a ghost podcaster soon.
And look at you now.
But before that, when I was like, what do I do? What do I like? Where do I go? Where do I move? That was the time that I could have been an Italian goat
looking
farmer.
for goats.
Yeah.
You do give off Italian goat farmer vibes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a compliment. Hugely.
In non-goat news, this is almost the last recording that we'll have to do not together.
I know, because you move here so soon. I'm so excited, but I like continue to catch my breath because I'm like, until you're literally here, there's part of me that's still, I know that you're like,
my
your
car is already
shipped.
on the way.
Things are coming, but I like need to see you here with a key in your hand. That's like, this is it for me to finally be like, okay, now you are truly here.
Yeah. Well, I will be on a plane tomorrow afternoon. So
amazing. I actually was, I was thinking about it yesterday because I was looking at I think we just got like a comment on our Instagram or something. Someone liked a photo from a while ago. So I clicked on it and it was a picture of us that we had taken during tour, but we had posted it a few months ago. And I had written the caption, petition to get Sabrina to move to Marblehead. And I was like, it's funny because you actually had zero plans to move to Marblehead at that time. And it all just like truly happened so quickly. And now you're here.
Well, okay, there is a post that I posted like a month or two ago. And I also wrote, I made the caption.
Oh, was it you?
Wait, yeah, February 26th. It's a photo of you and I in your office from when I came to do the Moment House. And I wrote this caption, petition for Sabrina to move to Marblehead.
Oh, okay.
So we can take more photos together.
It must have been around the time where we handed off because we take turns doing socials. So
yeah.
It must have been when I had just handed it off to you.
But I think I was doing like a, hey, petition, but it was in the works. In my brain.
The seed was planted 2 years ago, but like it was in the works, but it wasn't. We still had conversations after that where you were like, yeah, damn, baby, look at what happens. You never know who's going to come into your life.
Shoot your shot.
Man, I'm so excited for you to be here. I'm curious how New England will inspire Payne as well.
He's going to become Ghost Boy.
I feel like he really will. There's so many dark, spooky places here that I just feel like there's no way he won't latch onto something here and be like, I have to investigate.
100%. He's also like constantly brainstorming new ideas. So
I'm sure we'll get some new content from Payne based in Marblehead or the surrounding area.
Exactly.
And now that you're here, I'm going to make you go on a field trip with me probably in the fall or at some point within the next year. Because I've said I wanted to do this like 1,000 times and no one has ever been like, yeah, let's actually do it. People are just like, oh, that's cool.
What do we want to do?
I need to go see the freaking dinosaur footprints in the bedrock along the Connecticut River in Western Massachusetts. And I won't wait.
Let's go. Also, baby boy is going to love that stuff when he's like a toddler.
That's true. Oh, should I wait? Well, I guess I can go more than once.
Wait,
it's like a 2.5 hour drive from we're on the seacoast. So, but I want to go multiple times. And fall is the best time to go out there, you know, like into the Berkshires. And
I'm going to be a leaf peeper. I'm going to be a leaf peeper.
Leaf peepers. You get apple cider donuts whenever you want. It's not just like a special treat where you're like, oh gosh, I have to get it because I'm here. Now you get to have it all over the place in September and October.
When can I call myself a masshole?
I feel like maybe other massholes might say longer than this, but I feel like 1 year.
Okay.
I don't think you have to stay here very long. I think the 1 year mark. You have your Massachusetts driver's license, and then you have 1 year. You've seen all of the seasons here. You get to call yourself a masshole.
Do you get like a patch or something?
You get a McGillicuddy's shot.
A what shot?
A McGillicuddy's shot and a middle finger. And that's probably most appropriate.
What's the shot called?
McGillicuddy's.
And what is it?
It's kind of like Fireball, but it's minty. It tastes like a shot of mouthwash.
Okay.
It's the initiation.
And you've done this?
Yeah. It's an initiation. So when you hit the 1 year mark, I will be at your front door with McGillicuddy's shots.
Okay.
And
perfect.
a slap in your face and say, fuck you.
You're a masshole now.
Fuck you, but I love you. That's the masshole way.
I'm so excited.
Me too. Okay, but one thing about New England that is so lovely, and I know that this exists all over the place, but in New England, I found myself as I'm getting older and I'm situated here, I travel a little bit more in New England. I've started to expand into the Northeast, just like in general, to do some kind of like weekends away. I am much less of a plane traveler. And I think as I've kind of discovered these new towns and liked to pop in places, I've also realized that I have started to migrate from a loyal hotel stayer to enjoying a quaint and charming little inn. I just feel like inns are they're always perfectly situated, right? Like they're always in the heart of the little town square or the downtown. If there is a little shopping strip, they're right there. So you don't have to rely on your car. They're very homey. There's always someone that's like making you breakfast. Each room
warm,
is unique.
It's cozy. Yeah. It has charm and character. It's kind of like you're living in Gilmore Girls.
It totally is. And it's like, for some reason, when you're in a hotel, you don't really talk to people, right? Like you might pass, if you're awkwardly passing by someone in the hallway, you're like giving like the nod.
Hello?
But I feel like at the inn, it's just suddenly everyone's like, there's so much camaraderie around staying at an inn. Everyone feels like they're neighbors suddenly, and you strike up conversation and you make friends. And it's just if you want that certain experience, inns are perfect for it because I feel like it's pretty much copy paste everywhere.
It just has a different feeling than a hotel. I feel like hotels feel more business and travel, whereas staying at an inn or even a boutique hotel, you have a different, more homey feel.
It's more intentional, I feel like people stay. It feels like it's always for vacation. It's a weekend away. It's a special occasion trip.
Escape.
It's an anniversary. There's something magical happening amongst the people that are there. And so everyone's just so happy to be there.
Yeah.
So I thought I should tell you about this one particular inn today. It is along the Hudson River in Rhinebeck, New York. It is an inn that gives us a little bit of everything because it is haunted, it is old, it is beautiful, and it is America's oldest continuously operating inn.
Oh, when did it open?
In the 1700s. This is the Beekman Arms and Delamater Inn.
Ooh.
So the area itself, I mean, there's been people that lived in that area for a long time because the Native Americans were there first. It was the Sapasco Native Americans that primarily lived in this area along the Hudson River. And then in the 1680s, this is when the Dutch came to the area and they colonized it. And then they were like, let's set up this little town.
Okay, so it's a Dutch town.
Yes, ish. Dutch were there first. Then the English come.
Okay.
Things happen. So everyone's kind of a
murder
modge podge.
happens.
Yeah. History, baby. Multiple groups. So the area itself, from what I could see and what I could read, because I've actually never been along the Hudson River, and I feel like I should go to the Hudson Valley because it just looks so beautiful. And I've had friends that have like fantasized about living there. So I've looked at a lot of properties on like Zillow and Redfin there, and it does look quite beautiful. At the time, it wasn't really developed much. So it was very lush in forests. It was along the winding, beautiful Hudson River. And it was just a very attractive spot for people who maybe didn't really want to live in New York City, which at the time, this is where a lot of the people were migrating to from Europe.
Oh my gosh, the picture of it with the snow.
The one with the snow is really beautiful. It actually reminds me a little bit of the Woodstock Inn and Resort in Woodstock, Vermont. It has that sort of look.
Every time you mention something new, I'm like, okay, add that to the list of like little road trips that we're going to take together.
Okay, you got to go to Beekman Arms and Delamater. I can't say that word. Inn. Well, Woodstock, you could have come, but you had to go to your cousin's
wedding. Rude.
Instead of my bachelorette.
It actually worked out perfectly because Noemi was born right between the two. So I was there for her birth.
That did work out really well for you. Well, maybe we can do a little couples trip up there because I was just telling Brian, I was like, I really want to show you Woodstock. And we pass by it on the way up to Vermont every single time I go to my parents' house. It's just, we're usually trying to race against traffic. And I'm not like, oh, let's go stop and eat at the
leisurely stop.
Butcher shop. Yes. So we'll go. But this place at the time, it was just a very desirable spot, right? Like it was like, if you want fresh air, green trees, and chocolate chip cookies for breakfast, this is where you go. So people started to establish themselves there. In 1704, William Traffigan, I'm probably butchering his last name, but William Traffigan, he was one of the earliest settlers of Rhinebeck, New York, and he decided, hey, let me take advantage of this opportunity. There are some people coming through to this area, some people curious about it or just passing through, but there's not much here. So I should do something that will benefit me. I should open up a traveler's inn. So a place for people to stay.
I love that. Travelers' Inns, though, always remind me of what's that infamous story of the Travelers' Inn where they were murdering people?
Are you talking about in Charleston, South Carolina, where they were at the old Charleston jail? It was the first suspected female serial killer.
Yes.
What's her name?
I literally covered her.
Yes, you did. Google it.
I want to say it starts with an L.
Lorraine.
Lavinia Fisher.
There we go. So he opens up the Traveler's Inn, or he, I guess, builds it and opens it up. And he chose a spot in the town that's right at the crossroads. So he was like, okay, well, this is perfectly situated as people are coming and going right at the crossroads. This is going to be my Traffican Tavern, which is what he called it, to just capture everybody who comes in. There's not going to be a single person that comes into this town that isn't going to see the Traffican Tavern and know about it.
And also, like, if there's no other place to stay, he's going to be kind of getting all of the business to his place.
Totally. And yeah, he was an entrepreneur. Okay. And it appeared that what he did was successful because not only was he now opening up this tavern, this place to stay, this inn for travelers, but William Traffigan was also setting up a business that he would be able to pass on down through multiple generations because it was successful. It did stay. So I think his son maybe had taken it over, and then eventually his grandson took it over.
Oh my God, I love that.
62 years later, Arndt Traffigan, William's grandson, was operating the inn.
I so badly want to leave behind something like that.
I know. I think this is so sad. So my dad owns 2 Allstate agencies, and not that it's like, but I think growing up, he thought we would want to take over the agencies, and we were like, hell no. And then my brother ended up taking over an agency, but not his.
Not his. Yeah.
But I think he saw that. Like, he thought that maybe we would do
that
it.
Was his
at
version
the time,
of it.
You know, when we were younger, there were a lot of people taking over their parents' agencies. So he was like, oh, you know, I have 2 of them, 1 for each kid. And we're both like, no, thanks.
Yeah. I do want this house that in Marblehead, I want to have it forever and pass it down to kids. Like, I think, especially just because it has so much history. There is a couple that Payne met who their family has literally lived in Marblehead since the conception of the town. And live in the house.
I was literally going to say, I was like, I feel like most of the houses in Marblehead are kind of like that anyway.
Passed down. Yeah. I was like, that is so sick.
Yeah. It's hard to live there if you don't already, like if a house isn't given to you or if you don't have an insane budget for most places. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of towns in New England that are like that too.
Yeah.
So Arndt had taken it over, Arndt Traffigan, the grandson. And he's running it, and he's like, okay, Rhinebeck has grown a bunch in population. There are a bunch of businesses. You know, this is like 60-some years later. Roads are popping up. The area in which the inn is kind of not perfectly situated as it was anymore. So Arndt made the decision to relocate the whole building and put it in this new spot, which is where Kings Highway intersected with Sapasco Trail. So this spot was basically just like a newly perfectly situated spot for how the town had been developed around it. And this is where the inn still exists today.
That's so cool because I feel like there's so many chances for an opportunity for not necessarily failure, but it to be in the wrong place or for a highway to be built and then everyone circumnavigates this town and it doesn't have the charm anymore or it kind of becomes like the town in Cars. I don't know why that's my association, but
yeah, it does. Well, and I guess another thing too is like there's so much transition in terms of how people travel throughout this century. So at the time when they first opened, there were a lot of people that were coming to the area via trains or I guess via the Hudson River. But the Hudson River would freeze over. And so in the winter, there weren't that many people coming through. And then it really just left the trains. And now 60 years later, there's more people that want to come. The town is more built up. And so the only real viable option for travel at this time to Rhinebeck outside of the train is by road. So the new spot that Arndt had put the inn at was so perfect because it was nearby the train tracks, but he built a road going up to it and it also is on the river. So in the summer, you could boat up or you could walk from the train or you could take the road. He was like, what are all the travel options? I'm going to make sure that every form of transportation we have accessible to this spot.
This town, I'm just looking at more pictures, is truly, it really gives me Gilmore Girls energy.
Well, and Gilmore Girls, I can't say the word. Gilmore
Ghouls.
Gilmore Girls. It just kind of does give that like quaint New England Northeast town sort of vibe. And I will say, I feel like I always associate things with like New England and the Northeast because it was, you know, one of the earliest established areas in America. It's where I live. I've traveled a lot of the towns in this spot for my whole life.
Right.
But being on tour, I will say there's a lot of towns that could be similar to this in like Virginia, if you think about it.
Right.
It's just kind of like the way that it used to exist, right? Like we don't build new towns like this anymore, which is kind of unfortunate. No. But it was very community based. It was like everyone's gathering in the square. Everything you need is right here.
You know what I got really excited about? There is a town hall meeting in Marblehead on like May 2nd. And I was like, Payne, we're going.
Are you going to go?
We're going.
Good, as you should. I'm pretty sure. I feel like Allison went to a few of those too. You got to be in the know.
Exactly.
You got to start being vocal about that. The sanitation issue, the town dump in Marblehead.
And I take pride in this town, so I'm showing up.
Yeah. Well, we have some friends that live in Marblehead too, aside from soon to be you guys. And we do hear the drama of the town meeting. So I'm like, wait, should I go to town meetings around here too? And figure out what's happening?
We're going to be town hall moms.
I know. Instead, I only know Marblehead drama, but that's because I feel like Marblehead is one of those. It's such a walkable town that it just, I feel like naturally kind of has more people involved in things because you're constantly talking to everyone you're passing by and they get you hyped up on certain issues. And then you're like, oh, I do need to go.
I need to go. Exactly.
Yeah. So in order to accommodate the number of travelers coming by this inn, they decided that they would build a stage house. And so they constructed a whole stage house for all the stagecoaches. And then they built stables for the many horses that also enjoyed their time at the inn.
So cool.
Yeah. So more of an excuse for people to come in and choose this spot to stay over some of the other ones that had since popped up.
Because they have all the amenities. They are making it easy for you.
Totally. I don't know if this is true, but I feel like I would presume they would also be the most expensive, given that they have all the amenities.
Sure.
But it makes sense once I tell you some of the people that stayed here too.
Okay.
So he was a businessman, just like his grandfather, and he looked around himself and he was like, what more could be done? What things can I be the first to do? These things. This is not an English sentence, what I'm saying, but like he wanted to be a pioneer of the town. He was always focused. Yeah. Always focused on like, what are the needs that haven't been met? What are the needs that people don't even know are needs, but are going to be needs in 8 years? Let me do it now. And so he did these things. And he also lucked out in certain ways too. So at the time where his inn was located, and it's still located, the water supply for the town was established right there. So there was well water, and then they eventually turned it into the whole town's water. So it was already a spot that people were coming to. And it was perfectly situated because it was like, here's your fresh drinking water right next to the inn. So sometimes he got lucky. Other times he really was just a very savvy businessman. It was at this time that the Beekman Arms was added to the original tavern. It was named after the Beekman family. Judge Henry Beekman, he was a very prominent figure in the Hudson Valley. This family was one of the few families that owned the majority of the land in the area. And so I don't know what their relationship was to each other.
Yeah, I was wondering like how they chose that name because usually they name it after, especially back in the day, you would name it after your own family.
Right.
I wonder if he was an investor or anything. Maybe he...
Perhaps. Or like maybe when they moved the entire inn to that new piece of land, perhaps it was rented or purchased from the Beekman family. I'm not really sure. But it was named after one of the largest, most prominent families there. So Beekman Arms was added to the title. And then in 1769, Arndt passed away. And the tavern and inn that had been passed down for 3 generations in the Traffican family for their family business, it was now being sold to just... whoever. It was no longer going to be a family business in their name. And so the new owner who bought it, his name was Everatus Bogardus. He was a Dutchman, and he had a lot of business aspirations, and he wanted to shake hands with many budding politicians and American revolutionists at the time. And so he vocalized how welcome people involved in the American Revolution would be here. And so this kind of became a hotspot for a lot of the people that we learn about in history class.
I feel like every time we cover old historic hotels, even the Driscoll Hotel in Austin, I feel like they became these social gathering places.
Yeah, they totally did.
It was like the hot new club that you should go to be seen.
100%. I also feel like almost every place in the Northeast George Washington stayed at, I'm like, did you even have a home?
He traveled.
Like, how were you always on the go?
Nonstop. That man. Yeah.
I'm literally like driving through the back streets of Vermont. I'll see a plaque. They'll be like, George Washington stayed here and on this day. And I'm like, why? This town still doesn't have anything in it.
I was like, poor George. Did you ever get to sleep in your own bed?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Whenever I think of George Washington, I think of the hot George Washington in Hamilton.
I know. Me too. I actually don't. It's hard for me to remember what George Washington actually looked like because I just picture that actor.
Same.
We're rewriting history. Or Lin-Manuel.
Lin-Manuel is.
The 4th Regiment of the Continental Army would use the front lawn to perform drills in preparation for the oncoming conflict, the war.
Wow.
People fled here to take refuge from the British when the British had burned the state capital, Kingston, across the river. And people like Benedict Arnold, Alexander Hamilton, and George Washington would post up here from time to time during the Revolutionary War. In 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed, and the inn was no longer necessarily a place to stop to make military plans in anticipation for an oncoming war, or for them to just, like kind of gather and discuss how to overthrow.
Strategy.
Yeah, how to break up with the British. It was still used by many politicians, but instead the conversations kind of pivoted to, now that America has been established, like how do they go about making it work, essentially.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
government.
how does this new country operate? So in 1804, there was this very intense race between political candidates for New York State governor. And both candidates actually chose to headquarter their race in Rhinebeck. So the Beekman Arms Inn, it saw a lot of people coming and going, a lot of people coming to shake hands with these politicians, and a lot of heated discussions. And I'm not really sure why Rhinebeck was so appealing to people coming here, but I think it just like kind of was a hotspot. Maybe it just had this reputation because even Vice President Aaron Burr, sir, was here at the time, and he had actually just killed Alexander Hamilton and decided to go up here.
Okay.
And he stayed at an inn down the street called the Hendrick Kip House, which in terms of a place to stay, it's not older than the Beekman Arms Inn, but it is the oldest known structure in Rhinebeck. So eventually the oldest structure was converted into an inn.
Okay. Gotcha.
But it's not the oldest inn. Yes.
Got it.
So apparently everyone was flocking to Rhinebeck. And not only was it a place to make business moves and discuss how to start a country, but it was also an attractive area for people to move to, build homes, and start families because it was very close to two major cities. There was Albany, New York, and New York City, Manhattan, New York, baby. So there was a lot of land for the taking at the time, and it was just easy to travel when need be into these larger cities.
How far is it from New York City? I'm looking.
Probably like an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not far. It is far from where we live because I looked it up. I was like, oh, day trip. No, it's a little bit further. So many of the richer families from New York City, they would build these really large estates on the Hudson River. And even the train rides from New York City to Rhinebeck became fancy. So there was this one train line that was nicknamed the Hucklebush line because the train's engineer would literally stop the train at certain parts, like not planned stops, just randomly when he felt it, he would stop the train. Everyone would get off. He'd be like, oh, there's like strawberry bushes or huckleberry bushes over there. And everyone would go pick their berries and then get back on the train and continue their magical ride up to Rhinebeck. Doesn't that sound so dreamy?
That's so magical.
I know. It is magical. So once the travelers got to town, the Beekman Arms Inn was open for business, as it had been for a century now. Mm-hmm. And it was adapted. So before it was adapted for horses, and now it's going to start catering to cars.
Okay.
One repeat customer who came here a lot was Franklin Roosevelt. And he loved it so much that he came multiple times, and he started to...
That's what she said.
Well, it really got something out of him here because... not only did he come here just to enjoy the area, but apparently at the end of each of his 4 political campaigns for governor and for president, he made some sort of like concluding speech on the front porch here. It was like almost like a little tradition. He'd wrap up on the porch of this inn. I don't know what he said, who was listening,
right?
Why it was important.
I'm picturing like everyone at the hotel being like, okay, dude, bye.
Yeah. All right, man.
Who is this for?
For all you mustached fellas out there, come to the Beekman Arms Inn. It'll make you president.
It is one of those things where you think about if social media was around back then, what these people would have been like on social media. This guy would have been, like, he probably would have been dangerous on Twitter.
Is he live streaming? Would Franklin Roosevelt be the type of person that would have a selfie stick and would...
100%.
You know what he would do?
What?
He would be one of those guys that wears the really tight t-shirts and uses an axe to like cut all of the wood and makes really kind of suggestive
sexy
sounds.
Content.
Yeah, I think he would be one of those, you know?
Yeah.
Be a man. That's what he would say.
Yeah, and then he would probably go on like tangents and like make speeches all the time.
Although for some reason, I just feel like he's so Nick Offerman that perhaps he's not. I feel like Teddy Roosevelt and Nick Offerman are actually the same people. So maybe he would just be like the most wholesome person ever.
I like that that's your association.
I'm unsure. Yeah. I mean, in ways, Franklin Roosevelt was pretty wholesome because in Rhinebeck, he was like, I love this area so much. I want this place to be better. You know what else I love? Stamps. And there's nowhere for me to buy my stamps and collectible stamps. So he helped establish the Rhinebeck post office so he could collect his stamps. Oh my God.
Was it actually because he loved stamps?
There's an association with it, yeah. I'm sure there was more reason, but...
Do you think he just liked licking do you think he liked the taste of it?
I have no idea. I just know that he collected stamps. And so maybe this was part of it. It's like he's spending a lot of time here. He doesn't want to have to travel to collect his stamps. But he's also, he's a political figure. I'm sure he's also like, hey, let's make it easier for me to not have to
No, it's about communicate with other people. Let's not kid ourselves. It was about the stamps.
Stamps first, actual mail second.
Yeah.
So when the Beekman Arms Hotel transitioned to new ownership around 1918, this is not long after the post office was established with Franklin Roosevelt, the new owner, Tracy Dowse, he decided that it was time to renovate the inn once more. And he also had a son, Olin. And Olin was this really wonderful artist. And Olin actually was basically, I don't know if he was officially employed or if he just did it for fun, but he painted a really big mural on the Rhinebeck post office. I have no idea if that still exists today. I really hope it does. He got to paint the side.
That's so cool.
And also his mural was depicting the beginnings of Rhinebeck, being established, which I was picturing. I know that it's going to be this beautiful mural, but in my mind, I was picturing the sign for Schitt's Creek when it's welcome to Schitt's Creek. And it's the girl bent over and the man behind her.
It does have that vibe, but
yeah.
It still exists. It's beautiful. I mean, it's kind of massive. It's kind of throughout the whole post office, the whole.
Is it the original or did they have someone come in and restore it or something?
I think it's the original.
I hope so. I didn't do too much research into
Olin Dowell's murals, Rhinebeck post office.
So Olin is obviously, he's talented. And he also has a lot of talented people around him because he went to school for art. And one of his college buddies was actually classmate Thomas Wolfe from Asheville, North Carolina, who would come up to Rhinebeck to visit Olin and stay at the inn. And during one of Thomas's stays, he treated it kind of like a writer's retreat for himself because he was a creative, but while Olin was painting, Thomas was writing. And it kind of sparked the beginnings of an idea for a book here. And it would become the novel called Of Time and the River, which is a famous book. And Thomas Wolfe would become a very successful American novelist. And this, one of his most famous and most known works, was literally a seed that was planted while he was at the Beekman Arms Inn writing there.
I don't know why, but I'm picturing the relationship between these two men as the relationship in Call Me By Your Name. And I think I'm just romanticizing these two artists in this beautiful town. And disclaimer, I totally made that up. And I know that's not true, but I just am wanting that in my head.
Yeah, just make it even more magical of a story.
Two artists artisting and falling in love in a beautiful little hotel.
Well, I do think it's cool that it did serve as inspiration for so many different people.
That is cool.
In 1958, Charles LaForge bought the Beekman Arms Inn, and he would become the longest-running owner. And in the 1980s, so we're much closer to the time when all of us were born and alive, he did something quite special. He added a greenhouse onto the side of the inn. So you can actually dine in the greenhouse. I think it might be closed in the wintertime, probably because it still gets a little bit too cold right there. But there's almost this little conservatory space that was added on. And it's just so beautiful. There's dining tables inside. The sunlight comes in. There's a bunch of plants. So lovely.
I feel like we both have just grown such an appreciation. You've always had an appreciation for architecture and home and plants and stuff. But I feel like this podcast has become a space for us to appreciate history and homely architecture and things like this way more.
I'm also going to butcher this, but I think that this is the only, or maybe it's the first and still standing example of American carpenter Gothic design. I might be butchering that, but there's some significance with the design of this. It just didn't write any of it down. And obviously can't remember things. I keep calling it the Beekman Arms Inn, but actually at the time in the 80s, Charles, he added more guest rooms and he bought, just like right down the street, the Delamater Inn. And so now it's the Beekman Arms and Delamater Inn. And I cannot say that word for the life of me.
So we're going Beekman Arms.
I'm just going to call it the Beekman Arms Inn, even though there's an extra word in there. So now there's more places to stay. There's a lot more character that has been added back in over time. It's grown. The whole property has multiple different structures on it too for people to stay or wander through because they haven't really taken anything away. They've just kind of kept adding as the decades and years go by and there's more needs. And it's still welcoming guests. It's continuing to hold its title as the longest operating inn in America. So if colonial charm and character, but with some, modern comforts is your thing, then you can check out the Beekman Arms and Delamater Inn. It's right in the center of Rhinebeck, and all the guest rooms, they have private bathrooms attached to them. There's air conditioning, there's flat screen TVs, and some of the rooms even have fireplaces. And while many of the rooms have been added on over time, there are 13 rooms you can stay in that date back to the original inn.
Can you request that I'm looking at their website.
Yeah, you can. I'm sure it's one of those things where you just have to call. But all of their rooms are listed. I just don't know what the names of the 13 rooms are. But there are different types of rooms that you can request. Some of them are in the Beekman Arms Inn, which would be those original 13. And some of them are just a block away at the Delamater spot. Okay. But I will warn people that it still is a little bit creepy. The inn itself is decorated as many inns are. Each room's a little bit different. They have a bit of charm, a bit of character, some old quilts, some old wallpaper. It's usually fully carpeted. It does feel like you're stepping back in time, but perhaps some of the spirits here do feel like they're still living in that time and that you're stepping back into their timeline because there hasn't been much changed in terms of the structure and how you move about the space in this inn. And so I think the ghosts are, there's many of them, and they feel that it looks the same as it did when they were there, and it kind of does.
I kind of love, I know you're about to tell us more about the ghosts and the specifics, but I can imagine it's mostly positive, and that's just these spirits who have such an affinity and affection for this hotel that they're continuing to be there.
They're pretty relaxed. They're pretty chill. You're spot on there. So the inn, surprise, surprise, is haunted. And there have been numerous paranormal
Welcome
groups.
to Two Girls, One Ghost.
In case you were shocked by this, don't be. There have been numerous paranormal groups that would come in and investigate over the years. And the majority of them have all come to the same conclusion, which is this place is haunted. One of the hotspots for paranormal activity is the tavern, which is actually the oldest part of the inn. Because remember, it was first the Travelers Inn, and the tavern was prioritized as being built first. Yep. And while a lot of the inn has been renovated and adapted over time, the tavern, pretty much the majority of the tavern, has been untouched. It is exactly how it was way back when. So, of course, the spirits are this is a great place for us to hang out, gossip about all the other people at the inn, have a drink, hang out. And they certainly are hanging out together because basically none of the things that people experience are scary. So usually what people experience in the tavern is just hearing people talking or whispers right near them as if there's a group of people or a couple of people whispering to each other or gossiping or whatever. But when they turn around, there's nobody there. So they can't locate where the conversation's coming from, but they can hear additional people having a conversation in the tavern.
Well, that makes me wonder if it's also kind of a residual thing or a weird timeline glitch.
Oh, yeah. I know, that would make sense. But there's also, so people have captured a lot of photos of orbs in the tavern too. So I don't know if orbs can I guess I've never thought about the association of do orbs mean it's an active haunting, or could orbs still capture residual haunting?
In my mind, it's just energy. So it could be anything. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of the signature dishes, I've decided to write about food in here. In case you decide to forget about the ghosts. They have a Dutch pot pie, and apparently there's this delicious little melty biscuit in the middle of it. I'm so hungry right now.
Your entire physicality and your voice completely just changed.
I need this pot pie. I read about it and I was like, I can make a whole page of research about this Popeye.
You had a moment. We just witnessed a moment.
Okay, well, the top 2 recommended dishes apparently are the Dutch pot pie with that buttery biscuit and then the Yankee pot roast. In various guest rooms, there's said to be a lot of paranormal activity. People do report feeling a presence, but no one has said that they feel uneasy or that it's threatening. It's more just like the startle of feeling like someone is around you, right?
Yeah.
So perhaps a curious spirit or two. People have sometimes seen full-bodied apparitions appear, but just as quickly as they appear, they disappear. So it's not really like this threatening or looming or approaching person. It's just like a quick, oh, I thought I saw someone, and now they're not there. And if this place didn't have enough paranormal activity just in general, they decided to convert the 2-story barn behind the inn, which I think is where they kept probably the carriages and the horses way back when.
Uh-huh.
They decided to convert this into an antique mall with over 30 dealers. So they are not only
Corinne!
hosting the dead inside, but they are transporting the dead to and from, letting them come and go through this antique mall.
This is a fucking dream.
I know. It does seem so cool.
We should plan a trip.
We should. Oh, on Friday nights, they'll bring you on a ghost tour down into the basement.
Fuck yeah.
And tell you about all the spirits. I don't know anything about this ghost tour, but I'm assuming that they tell you a bit more about like the actual spirits that people have seen. And it's one of those things where it's like, I think a lot of that information is kept within the tour and not really accessible online. So I couldn't find many like concrete, here's Tilly who haunts room number 14 and she tickles your toes at night. Like I couldn't find that. So perhaps this is how you get that information.
Guess we have to go. Twist my arm.
We do. And if all of this wasn't enticing enough for all of you folks to potentially go visit there, I do want to just name drop some other celebrities, some modern day celebrities, because we talked about Aaron Burr, we talked about George Washington and other people like that. But modern day, there have been a ton of celebrities who've chosen to stay here, including Jack Nicholson, Miley Cyrus, and Billy Joel, just to name a few. But literally there was like a list of 40 of them. Michelle Pfeiffer, Oprah, so many different people.
It's also affordable. I mean, maybe over the summer it's probably more expensive, but right now it says for May 2nd through 3rd, it's $204 a night.
Yeah, which seems pretty typical of an inn in the Northeast. I'm sure it's going to be like 400 something, 500 something
in the summer.
Yeah. So you can head on over to Rhinebeck, New York. You can explore the beautiful Hudson Valley, and you can book a stay at the Beak, as the locals call it.
The Beak.
America's oldest continually operating inn.
So cool. I'm truly looking at dates of how do we go here? How do we stay?
Look at this picture. We have it in the YouTube, but look at this one in the fall.
Oh, I saw that one. All of the beautiful flowers.
The mums, the pumpkins, the hay bales. Oh my God.
Man,
beautiful.
That's beautiful.
So that's the Beekman Arms Inn.
All of the weekends of the summer are booked, but they have weekdays available.
Well, we'll go eventually.
Yeah. I love this. I think because I'm also just in this mindset of I'm so excited to be in a town like Rhinebeck. I'm giddy and excited and happy and
yeah. And it's never ending. There's so many places like this in New England.
I know.
You could travel forever and never see it all.
Truly. Okay, so I picked a story from a listener. I basically did like hotel in New York. I was trying to get some type of connection.
Yeah. Northeast New York.
Yeah. Okay, so this is from our listener, Amanda, and it's called, So Apparently Ghosts Like to Sleep Next to Me.
Oh, okay.
Hi, ladies. I've been desperately trying to catch up on the podcast as I travel for work across New York State this past month, and this was back in 2021. I probably listened to at least 40 episodes, and I'm right up to the beginning of 2020 when you guys were full of hope of what the new year would bring.
So sad.
I have giggled a lot at the naivete we all had in those early days because we had no idea what was right around the corner.
Yeah, if we had just waited another 10 weeks.
Yeah. I've listened on and off over the last couple of years, but spooky season always gets me in the mood to listen to more. The only time I've had to turn it off so far was when I was driving at night in foggy, rainy conditions through cornfields while listening to you guys talk about demons. Nope, no thank you. I'm set with that. Country music it is.
I don't know. Sounds pretty cool.
Oddly enough, that drive is what leads me to my most recent story of a ghost sleeping next to me. I was staying at a hotel that seemed a little old and outdated, but it was still decent, and I was only there for 2 nights, so it was fine. Traveling alone and not having the comfort of my boyfriend and my kitty Ash, who I've attached cute pictures below, called for the TV to be on all night, and I would usually find something funny like Friends or ridiculousness. Now, this room had me freaked out from the moment I stepped in because there was a mirror basically right next to the bed. So if I slept on my left side, which I normally did, and opened my eyes, I would see right into the mirror and see what was behind me, which I wanted nothing to do with.
No, it's too scary at night.
Yeah. I tried to block as much of my view of the mirror as I could with the pillow to prevent that, but it was a big ass mirror. So the first night I fell asleep relatively easily, but I woke up at, guess what time? 3:33 a.m. on the dot.
Shit.
I tried not to panic and I just focused on the TV, but I realized something was different. Ridiculousness was no longer on, and it actually wasn't even on the channel Ridiculousness was on. It was now on some old movie channel. Thinking that maybe I had rolled over onto the remote or that the hotel had some setting and it resets to that channel after so long, I changed it back and I wanted to fall back asleep without further incident. The second night I was there, I did my same bedtime routine, pillow blocking my view of the mirror, TV on Ridiculousness, and off to dreamland. But again, I woke up. This time I woke up in the early morning before my alarm went off, around 5:30 a.m. In my sleepy haze, I rolled over and looked at the TV again, and again, it was on an old movie. Weird. I changed it back and fell asleep until my alarm went off. And again, when I woke up, my TV was again on the old movie channel. So I was kind of freaked out, but I just kept myself in check and tried to debunk these occurrences. I moved the channel up one. Nope, not the old movie channel. I moved the channel down one. Still not the channel. I went to the guide channel and there it was. Channel 16 was the old movie channel. The channel I had been on was channel 44. I chalked it up to an old ghost who wanted to watch an old movie and enjoy it while they could. I tested my theory when I went to breakfast and left it on channel 44. When I came back, still on channel 44.
Wow.
When I looked at the guide, I saw that the old movie channel actually had infomercials on. So of course the ghost didn't turn it back to that. I quickly gathered my belongings to go check out and left the remote at the end of the bed and said, "It's all yours to watch old movies." And I bounced. I had no plans to return to that hotel anytime soon.
My gosh, I'm so curious what they were watching. Was it old as in like Breakfast at Tiffany's, or was it like Gunsmoke? Like what were they watching? What generation is this ghost?
I wish I could say that this was the first time a ghost slept with me, but it is not. A couple years ago, my family and I were at our family's beach house in Maine for our annual week-long summer vacation. We have a family-owned home that is shared by my mother's siblings and their families. My grandparents built this in the 1950s, and when they retired in the 80s, they had the original cottage lifted and built underneath it to accommodate more of their very large and growing family.
Wow. Oh, I want to know where in Maine this is.
We'll have to ask.
Yeah.
I have visited every summer since I was born and never had a paranormal experience. The only thing close to a paranormal experience was after my grandfather passed away on November 11th, 2004. After that, clocks all stopped at 11:11, even with new batteries put in. So eventually we just left them and acknowledged that he was just still around, and we say hello to Grampy while we enjoy our summer vacations. In this house, there's a large downstairs with one bedroom, and then futons that have curtains around them to create more private sleeping areas. I always sleep in the downstairs room while my parents and my sister sleep in the two bedrooms upstairs. My niece had always slept in the room with me until a couple of years ago when she turned 6, and she wanted to sleep on her own bed on the futon right outside of my room. But before she went to bed on our first night, I told her she could come and sleep with me if she woke up in the middle of the night and that she could bring her own pillow in. So lo and behold, in the middle of the night, I hear the door open and I hear her run in with her pillow and curl up on the other side of the bed. On the second night, I tell her the same thing. And when I hear the door open in the middle of the night, I hear her pause. But then she continues and runs in and climbs over my feet and sleeps right next to me. I have zero space as this tiny 6-year-old has planted herself right on my side. I fall back asleep, and in the morning I go upstairs where the kitchen is, and when my sister wakes up, my niece looks at her and asks, "Mama, why were you in Auntie's bed last night?" My sister replied, "I wasn't in Auntie's bed last night. I was up here in my bed all night." And my niece nonchalantly replies, "Well, the lady with the dark curly hair was in Auntie's bed, so I had to sleep in the middle." What?
I cannot. Ew. She was literally body to body with a ghost. Oh, sandwiched by a spirit and her
Yeah.
auntie. Wow. She was way too chill about that. About
Right.
like, oh, well, the stranger was sleeping on the other side. I scooted over for her.
At least she was just asleep. Like it wasn't an interaction. It would have been terrifying if she like was staring at her, you know?
Right. Like, let me in, little girl.
Yeah. Ugh.
Could it be another relative though, maybe, who had passed and it was just like so many
I
family
don't know.
members together? How do I
It
make
could
this
be.
less scary?
I mean, if it looked like her mom, maybe it is a relative. I just don't know
Yeah.
who. All day she kept referring to the ghost in my bed and I was freaked out, but she did not seem to be. So I was like, okay. And as I started to think about it, I realized it could be two people from my family. First, it could be my grandmother, as I have had a medium tell me that she presents herself much younger in the afterlife. So she could have dark curly hair, but I personally only ever knew her with short white hair. The other option was my cousin who had just passed the winter before that vacation. She was only 41 and our place in Maine was her favorite place to be. When we were all kids, we all used to line up our sleeping bags and have one giant sleepover. Sometimes we would literally have 10 to 12 kids sleeping all in a row in the big open space downstairs. It was so much fun. So I can imagine that she was going back to do what we did as kids and all the beds were taken. So she curled up next to me, I guess. At least that's what I have to keep telling myself as I keep sleeping in that room every year. I do kindly tell the ghosts that even if they are a relative, I would prefer them to sleep elsewhere so that if my niece wants to sleep in bed with me, she doesn't have to fight for space. She throws enough punches and kicks in her sleep. Needless to say, after that night where the ghost was in my bed, she did not sleep in my bed with me the rest of that vacation. So I had to fend for myself.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe that's one perspective. But the other side, I was like, hey, that's a great way to have the bed to yourself the entire time and not have to have any uncomfortable little kicks and throws.
Yeah, exactly.
Punches thrown. Yeah. You're like, oh, well, if you sleep here, a ghost might be here too. So
Amanda says, my boyfriend and I were just recently at a store and he is a big 6 foot tall man who listens to metal music, but he is a big baby when it comes to ghosts. So as we turn down an aisle in the store, 2 lunchboxes come off the shelf as if someone pushed them right in front of us. We both stop in our tracks and he spins around and then moves 2 aisles over so as to not have to walk down the rest of that aisle. I laughed, I picked them up and put them back, but he was fully spooked and I thought it was hysterical. I made fun of him for the rest of the day. Here are a couple of sweet pictures of our girl, Ash. She has little like, oh my gosh, she's kind of cross-eyed. It's so cute. That's from Amanda.
Wow, Amanda. I mean, it does make sense that it could be her grandmother, which is what I was suspecting. I was like, I don't know, great grandma to like the little kid,
Right.
Because that would make sense. It's a family property, all the families together. It feels natural in like the spirit realm that they would be gravitating towards everybody in that moment.
Agreed.
To kind of like present themselves as being a present energy when everyone that they love is around them in a place that they love and a place that's familiar. It makes sense. But it is
I agree.
Creepy to hear the next morning.
Yes.
That's for sure. What are you laughing at?
Oh, man. No, I'm just thinking about how terrifying that is. And it's just making me uncomfortable. Like, little kids just are so nonchalant about things. But then it leaves like the adults with such terror and they can't really show that.
And then if you ask too many follow-up questions, the kids get uncomfortable, but then you don't want to ask them leading questions where they're, where like maybe they're like, oh, this is a fun game and they enjoy this. And now I'm going to start exaggerating details. Like it's such a line that you have to kind of navigate through.
All right. Well, it sounds like you have plenty of space at your summer house in Maine. So we'll do a trip to the Beekman Arms Hotel or Inn, and then we'll come to your house in Maine.
Right.
Thanks for inviting
We'll pack
us.
our sleeping bags.
Yeah.
We'll line up on the floor.
We'll take up the room in the bed so that the ghost doesn't have room and can't sleep in bed with you.
Perfect. Yeah. Just the 3 of us all sardines together.
Snuggled. Oh, man.
Well, thank you guys all for coming back again this week. If you have any paranormal stories, any haunted inns that you've stayed at, just anything odd and mysterious, you can email us at 2girls1ghostpodcast@gmail.com. That email is listed on our social medias. It's in the show notes. It's on our website, 2girls1ghost. So you can find it
on the YouTube.
Anywhere. It's on the YouTube. If you are trying to send us a story that you would like read on the podcast, that is where you send it to. We don't read from anywhere else. So
exactly. Yes.
Email
it to us. Or if you would like to share your story live with us, we have Campfire Stories live every Tuesday night on Patreon, which we just love our Patreon community so much. And We want to make it as accessible to people as possible. So for $5 a month, you get access to all episodes 1 week early and ad-free. You get access to Campfire Stories Live every Tuesday, and you can rewatch previous Campfire Stories from the last year plus. You also get one bonus episode a month. You get quarterly book club and just like chats and direct access to us via messaging and so many other things.
Shout out to Jamie. Jamie Ryan edits our audio and video. Thank you for editing and producing this podcast. And thank you to all of you, all of our most haunted friends and phantoms.
Our spooky phantoms.
We love you.
We love you.
And we will see you on the other side.